Thank you very much. And hello to everybody. Good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and an honor. I have 35 years of experience in healthcare investment banking, of which the last 15 years, I would say, dedicated to medical aesthetics and dermocosmetics and regenerative medicine. So we wanted to give you an update, actually, about the current status of the industry currently with regards to the momentum of consolidation which has taken place in the last years. The consolidation has been accelerating a lot. I mean, if we look just at the last 5 years, this has accumulated a total value of $120 billion US, or an average of 54 deals per annum. 2021, after the pandemic, recovered, I would say, with a revenge splurge effect with regards to transactions, especially in the medical aesthetics and dermal filler space, which was due to the massive injection of liquidities into the banking systems, financing, of course, actually such acquisitions by private equity groups or large corporations, as well as the prejuvenation effect, the democratization, generally speaking, of the industry, the shift of the center of gravity towards Asia, and the digitalization, of course, importance, I would say, of the Zoom boom effect and the personal care and combined therapies. We'll see afterwards what kind of combined therapies are taking place right now in the hospitals. 2022 reached, actually, I would say, an inflection point after the geopolitical uncertainties with the war in Ukraine, as well as the rise of the interest rate, the tapering of this, quantitative easing measures by the central banks, so that the interest rates were rising. There were massive also disruptions of supply chain systems within the entire world, which caused certainly the industry, I would say, also to take a blunt, and this has led, I would say, to a significant slowing down of the transaction volume. Nevertheless, the multiples remain quite high. 2023 is a transition year. We had, on the one hand side, I would say, a certain recovery from the end of a year. We had a shift of the paradigm from medical aesthetics, pure play transactions towards body, from facial to body transactions. We've seen this, for instance, with the acquisition of Lutronic in Korea by Han. We've seen this also with the reverse merger of Allurion, the French gastric balloon company, into the SPAC, Compute Health Acquisition Corp, which was afterwards listed on NASDAQ, with an implied multiple of 7.8 times sales or 25 times EBITDA. A very resounding success, actually, for this treatment of obesity. We've seen as well, actually, towards the end of the year, an acceleration of the dermocosmetics transaction dynamics with, for instance, actually the acquisition of Rock by Bridgepoint, or Dr. Dennis Gross by Shiseido, and more recently as well, the Honeypot by Compass Diversified. All of this has led actually to this traction, which you can see here. Of course, we believe that this will be accelerating in 2024, as we will see in the final section. If I look at the breakdown of a transaction, what I see here is that the US has become also a predominant driving force in terms of geography, thanks to large transactions like the Compute Health Acquisition Corp reverse merger into Allurion, as well as more recently also the acquisition of Cynosure by Lutronic. But it's certainly as well, actually, the fact that a number of dermocosmetics transactions have taken place in the US, like Elf Beauty's acquisition of Naturium. If I'm looking actually at the evolution in terms of value, I can see that the APAC region has gained volume and as well, actually, valuation, thanks to the Aesop acquisition by L'Oréal. And we will see what has been the consequence now in terms of the multiples. Now, the multiples have been hit by a severe collapse, I would say, actually, within the 2023 timeframe, due, of course, to the bankruptcy of Credit Suisse. I spoke before, actually, about the tapering in the quantitative easing measures. I spoke as well, actually, about what happened in the US with the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and of the FTX cryptocurrency transaction platform. And all of this, of course, has created a number of uncertainties on the interest rate, and the interest rates increasing. This has declined, I would say, the valuation, generally speaking, although we will see that there are some safe harbors like exosomes with very high valuations, such as in the Edelweiss Skincare IPO, which was priced at 47 times 7 sales, which is an unheard of, unprecedented level of multiples. EBITDA multiples, generally speaking, for all transactions in the medical aesthetics, dermocosmetics, regenerative medicine, EBD, breast implant space, have been declining. We will see afterwards that this is due to the fact that there have been a number of distressed M&A transactions this year for the first time. This is an analysis here of the multiples by subsegments. And again, here, I think 2023 was characterized by a circumstance of high interest rates coupled with geopolitical uncertainties, which have been, of course, actually aggravated by the crisis in Israel and the competitive tensions between China and the United States. Of course, high interest rates, high inflation, and I would say recession in Europe in terms of an environment where overweighting on the development of the consolidation dynamics. Here is actually, again, a distinction between acquirers and targets. Now, if I'm looking actually at the target's location, I can see the US has been increasing. If we consider that, for instance, the Compute Health Acquisition Corp was a target, or Dr. Dennis Gross, of course, actually in dermocosmetics, or Cynosure more recently with Lutronics. So in terms of targets, the US has demonstrated once more its resiliency within the medical aesthetics transaction space. Europe has been declining in terms of both volume and targets because it has lost in attractiveness because of the reduction, of course, of the growth rate, high inflation environment, still some, I would say, pondering disruptions from the supply chain management after the pandemic. APAC, there is a reduction in volume. This was due to the fact that China was still actually closed as a result of the lockdowns post-pandemic, but it has resumed towards the end of the year. And in terms of value, this has increased because this is biased by L'Oréal's acquisition of Aesop in Australia in a very acrimonious competitive auction race. Now, if I'm looking here at the buyers, the United States is a predominant geography in terms of the buyers, thanks to the fact that there have been a few, I would say, body reshaping as well as demo fillers transactions taking place within the US. Europe is declining, in terms of volumes, but is increasing in terms of value due to L'Oréal's move on Aesop. And APAC is decreasing here again in terms of volumes due to the crisis. Also, we should never forget that 2023 was a year of real estate debacle in China with China Evergrande. So that actually the interest rates have been rising over there as well. Now, this is an interesting chart, although a little bit convoluted, but just to give you the gist of it, this is the deglobalization forces at their work. Post-pandemic, you can see that there is a refocusing, I would say, on domestic trade in terms of cross-border M&A transactions in the medical aesthetics space. United States is still actually an international destination, but as you can see, the percentages actually of domestic transactions are high because the executability or the visibility of executability of transaction synergies is higher when it's actually performed in your own geography and within your own regulatory framework, as opposed actually to on a cross-border basis. I mean, also the regulatory framework has gotten complexified both in Europe with the MDR 2028, as well as now in China with the introduction of new rules concerning dermocosmetic ingredients, for instance. Europe is the most internationalized geography, both in terms of outflows and inflows. This is due to the fact that it has a central strategic location between the United States and China, and it's open as well to investments from Middle East and Africa and for large Emirati, Qataris, Kuwaitis, and Saudi investors. China is probably actually the most inwardly looking geography, even though there are a few, I would say, highlights of transactions going from China towards the United States, like for instance, the investment by China National Biotech Group in advanced aesthetics therapeutics for their agarose-based Algenes product, as well as the investment by Shanghai Haohai in Iran Therapeutics, which is a novel form of topical toxin in the US, together with a number of in-licensing. I mean, in-licensing is also the other side of the coin, if you will, towards M&A. There has been a proliferation of in-licensing transactions, which I could present. But if we look at the M&A, these are the flows. China, so very inwardly looking predominantly. Same thing for the Middle East North African region, except for export of capital towards Europe, as you can see here with the flow and the arrow going towards Europe, fundamentally this North African region. Here, a recap, already spoken about this, you see with the predominance of the American flags that consolidation has been recentering itself towards the US in 2023 with the Allurion deal together with Computer Health Acquisition Corp. Of course, actually, Lazeo is one of the largest medical aesthetics clinics platforms in France with all kinds of, I would say, operations, microdermabrasion, hydrofacial types of operations, hair removal, skin brightening, tightening, resurfacing, etc. Acquired in a majority stake by Blackstone. The move on Benef by ExocoBio, a Korean-US transaction. And here, the phenomenon which I was alluding to before, the bankruptcy deals, Symatese, which acquired actually the breast implants company Sebin in France. Sebin was one of the leading at the avant-garde, I would say, of breast implantation and connected tissues, but unfortunately, due to its complexity, had to run for bankruptcy and illiquidity, was taken over by a French company. In the US, in Vivev, the assets were taken over by InMode. You see a few other bolt-on, follow-on transactions. Archimed, which is a large private equity fund with $8 billion under management, dedicated now to medical aesthetics after the acquisition of a majority stake in Prolanium, as well as Namsa, Softfeel, and now actually Wico in Italy. Evolus is a US player diversifying now towards HA-based dermal filler injectables with the acquisition of Symatese's products Evolis and the Shanghai Ohio transaction. This is a China, if you will, domestic transaction acquiring OHMK, which was a dermal cosmetic company owning itself Bioxys in France, a dermal filler company. Now, this is kind of the recap of the multiples. We've already spoken about that. What are the mega trends? I think one of the first mega trend I will speak about is the skin boosters and the biorejuvenators and biorevitalizers, biostimulators effect based on PLLA. And now this has been accelerated, I would say, with Ozempic and Wegovy consumption in the US, leading to a number of lipodystrophies, skin laxity phenomena, which are being compensated by injections of Sculptra. We can see here also that also other types of polymers have been diversifying. If you look at the policy of large biopolymer players like Blue Major, HTL, they are diversifying themselves towards collagen, PLLA, PDLA, PDRN, polynucleotides, etc. Calcium hydroxyapatite. We've seen the success of the launch of Harmonica by Allergan in North America, Latin America as well, and the rollout of this. The pre-visualization, we had spoken about digitalization before and the IoTs as well, the importance of social networks appealing to a new target audience because of the prejuvenation effect is extremely important. But pre-visualization is a way with AI-powered systems to reduce uncertainties about the outcome of a medical aesthetics procedure. It's also a way actually to have digital avatars or digital twins actually of patients talk to doctors or talk to actually medical aesthetics surgeons in order to see and to reveal actually their own perceived dysmorphophobias. So pre-visualization has become a major catalyst, I would say, in terms of accelerating the conversion of considerers into patients. And it being performed actually with a very high level, we will see afterwards, of accuracy, agility, and fidelity of the images which are being provided. Before we had only before and after pictures or projections. Now we have pictures in motion. We have also holographic pictures and holographic films. So now exosomes, I'm not going actually to educate anybody on exosomes here in this room, but I believe that we've all seen actually the hype, the over-sensationalized hype. I think there is a reality behind this because of these extracellular microvesicles having so many functionalities for biological cell information cascade, anti-inflammation effect, reactivation of the mitochondrial activity, reconstruction of the dermal-epidermal juncture, as well as stimulation of fibroblasts and tisular induction of skin rejuvenation. So no wonder that we've had actually this phenomenon, a huge dominance here of the US, China being kind of, trying to catch up now with a certain number of players. We don't have so much visibility. An industry growing 27% CAGR per annum between now and 2030. At the end of a decade, it will represent shy of 3 billion in terms of total value. I think we should expect further companies and also combinations of exosomes, maybe with other types of regenerative medicine products like PRP, for instance, like autologous stem cells, etc. And a number of players. I think here the US is overrepresented, as we can see on this picture, with a number of very well-known names. A few transactions as well. I spoke about the Healthegy Skincare IPO before, with its mesmerizing level of multiples. But recently, actually, BNF was acquired by the champion in exosomes in Korea, ExocoBio, which is developing some new forms of plant-based exosomes and synthetic recombinant-based exosomes. And, of course, Celez, which was acquired, or maybe Celise in English, which was acquired by Archimed very recently in the first quarter of 2024. So this consolidation will accelerate. Now, just want to spend 1 minute actually about the mesotherapy phenomenon in Europe. This is a very European / I would say Middle East, North African and Chinese phenomenon. I've been advising a Chinese company acquiring actually a French company in that space called Revitacare. But we can see here that we have a number of other players like Philmed with NCTF 135HA, which was the co-founder of mesotherapy in Europe, together with Mesoaesthetic, with its strong dominance, I would say, and mastery of tranexamic acid combinations. You have other players, of course, like Suicel in Switzerland, like Promo Italia, like Professional Derma, MD Skin Solutions, Skin Tech, which is currently being acquired, and a few others, which are deploying the network. But the great thing about mesotherapy is that large players or integrated players, if you take, for instance, Galderma with Restil and Vital, are engaging into this. Matex Lab with Neovia has got Hydrodelax now. Philmed, which has got art filler and skin perfusion, utilizes actually this argument of mesotherapy as a first entry vehicle into the ecosystemic platform of medical aesthetics for the younger audience, because the younger audience can be prejuvenated much more quickly with a mesotherapy epidermal injection than, of course, Gen X or seniors. Now, this is kind of an illustration of the mesotherapy aspects, in terms of cell reactivation, DNA reconstruction, acceleration, actually, of the mitochondrial activity, as well as deoxidation, detoxification of the cell, rehydration. This is the multiple effect, which has been clinically substantiated, for this one product, NCTF 135HA from Philmed. Now, if I'm looking at the dermal filler injectables business, this is now an 11.3 billion market, prices to the doctors and the clinics, out of a 16.8 billion total market for medical aesthetics, which will be including also dermocosmetics, regenerative medicine, energy-based devices, and breast implants. And here what we can see, it represents around about, I would say currently, 50% of the total market, is growing at a 10% CAGR, a little bit more quicker actually for the dermal fillers than for the toxins. Threads is an interesting market. I know it's not so well developed so far in the US. I believe that with regards actually to the reshaping, restructuring of the face, of the zygomatic arc, for instance, of maxillofacial, the masculinization of the face in certain patients, or basically skin sagging, it would be more and more utilized actually in terms of combination as well, the holy grail being having suspension and at the same time rejuvenation. Threads, combining, for instance, PCL or polydioxanone, PDO, together actually with PLLA threads. And that's what some of the companies here have achieved with their products. As you can see, it was first of all a European phenomenon with Silhouette Soft, which has been acquired by Sinclair a few years ago and commercializes Instalift here in the United States. And we have also actually the definitive threads, which are combined threads with a blend of PCL and PDLA. We have, of course, actually a number of Korean players in that space, like in every others, like Gitemas with Epiticon, like the Mint Thread, from Hans Biomed, like Miraku, actually from Dongbang, which is commercialized by BNF here in the US. So an interesting way. Pre-visualization is, of course, powered by AI and generative AI. I mean, the different types of systems, I mean, the OpenAIs, ChatGPTs, and Copilot and Geminis of this world. And we can see here the booming, actually, in terms of the total investments in this industry, reaching 80 billion in the United States in the next year and 160 billion in the entire world. And this, of course, has gone for different phases. The phases, I mean, from a rule-based system phase to a reasoning phase to, of course, actually a general artificial intelligence, Gen AI, in which we are now going towards, actually, I would say, a super artificial intelligence phase with singularity and excellence. And this is a decisive technological inflection point which can enable to accelerate, first of all, the pre-visualization, then the digitalization ubiquity at the finger points of the patients and the doctors, then the IOMTs, and of course the skin apps. The magnification of the doctor's power, I mean, this empowerment of doctors has been a new dimension, which is accelerated certainly because it enables to leverage the quantified self effect within the younger generations, which is aspiring, if you will, actually to the peak of the Maslow pyramid, and it enables to calibrate much better. So if you have, different types of Fitzpatrick Winkle scales or Lamperley or QT meters, it enables actually to have a much better measurement and to monetize this data afterwards on an anonymous basis. It also enables actually to create, I believe, an unstoppable and Amazon-proof, if you will, minimally invasive, holistic, and no downtime type of medical aesthetics ecosystemic platform, whereby you crack, if you will, the repeatability matrix with your customers or with your patients or with your distributors. And also what you want to do at the patient level is engage them into an immersive, addictive, captive, I would say gamified type of experiential journey to be able to retarget them with additional products or combine these products together, for instance, actually with energy-based devices. What we've seen is more and more doctors engaging actually into their own personalized skincare protocol for their patients, combining a microneedling plus RF product in the type of Morpheus 8 or Profound or Agnes Medical or one of these different products from Asia together with a dermal filler in order to enhance the products. And also with dermocosmetics, I mean, we can reach staggeringly superior results in terms of microdermabrasion because of the fact that a laser may be ablative, and the combination with a dermocosmeceutical in certain treatments like rosacea, redness, telangiectasias would be actually much more effective on the patients for the post-op treatment and satisfaction. Now, I mean, the skin apps, of course, here this is the convergence between fast-moving consumer goods players, I would say, and the medical aesthetics. The L'Oreals and P&Gs and Unilevers and all of these Colgates of this world are trying actually to emulate pharmaceutical companies by medicalizing themselves. If you look at the strategy of L'Oreal with SkinCeuticals acquisition, now recently Skin Better's acquisition, but also with Vichy and La Roche-Posay, Effaclar, etc., and CeraVe in this division, L'Oreal Beauty Dermatology, is really to have a presence, a very strong, ubiquitous presence, I would say, actually, on the patient's needs. And this is combined with different apps. You have My Skin UV app. You have, for instance, the Spot Scan by Effaclar to track actually the impact of acne. And acne is the first penetration vehicle for dermatological treatments. So it's a good way actually to penetrate as well actually the younger audience. But this has been emulated, of course, by P&G with the future you, with the pre-visualization of what you would be by using some of P&G's products, and My Skin ID by Johnson & Johnson Neutrogena. So all of this is, of course, accelerated by the digital networks. I mean, here in the West, I think this is driven essentially by Instagram and the Instagrammable beauty, generally speaking. I mean, the instant gratification of having one's pictures at his finger points and collecting and sharing those afterwards in the community. However, now it becomes more complex with fees and posts and reels, etc. And doctors cannot engage into this kind of games in Europe, but I think ultimately they will be able to do it, or distributors will do it for themselves. Here in the US, there is more, I would say, avant-gardism with regards to the use of these social networks to increase the visibility, actually, especially of the combined procedures. And China, right, with My Pink and Good Doctor, Little Red Book, Li, as well as Douyin, which is the Chinese TikTok, is also engaging into this pre-visualization and to the skin apps to retarget the patients more accurately. IoMTs, I mean, the Internet of Medical Things is a 127 billion market. First of all, it started with the wearables to track activity, but it has now engaged actually into something much more important, which is the possibility for patients, for instance, to compose their own combined medical aesthetics or dermocosmetic formulas in the comfort of their homes. Like, for instance, with L'Oreal Perso AI, L'Occitane's Duolab, and L'Oreal's Romy Paris. Also, this has been really growing very fast, and I believe that there will be a hub in the future together with the skin apps and, of course, actually the social networks and the pre-visualization. All of this will converge into a higher Uberized, if you will, and personalized and gamified medical aesthetics universe where the patient is empowered. I talked about the pre-visualization before, but I think here the key factors of success, you can see, of course, the actionability, I would say the accuracy, the specificity is like a diagnosis, right, of your skin. So it has to be specifically precise and accurate and sensitive, agile in terms of speed of responsiveness, and in 3D motion, if possible. And of course, actually, holographic is now the next frontier. And we can see that with the smartphones, you will have the possibility for patients to engage into this, and also actually for patients with certain technology and algorithms powered by AI to see avatars of themselves and to engage these avatars into a connection with a doctor. Now, this is kind of the different pre-visualization systems. It started with before and after, status pictures with Photo Finder and Quantificare and Aestheticon. It went towards actually into the body with Chrysalix, which had images actually of body, for instance, reshaping products after electromagnetic shock waves treatments with M-Sculpt or Tesla Former. Canfield developed actually the technology and has established really a primary golden standard of care in the US for the pre-visualization. And of course now actually the new players like NextMotion and ISCO in France with digital twins of the patient in 3D videos. Now, if a couple of words on the 2024 has basically hit on all cylinders. I think it will be a record-breaking year, despite, of course, actually the geopolitical uncertainties which seem to be mounting and escalating right now. But I believe that the facts are here. We have 5 times more transactions and volumes and values than in the first quarter of 2023. This is due to the fact that there have been actually some large transactions taking place. As a matter of fact, actually, Lutronics acquisition of Cynosure at the beginning of the year, Bridgepoint's acquisition of Revision Skincare, of Rock, from Griffin at the beginning of the year, as well as the Honeypots acquisition by Compass Diversified and Dr. Frangi's by L'Occitane, and now actually of Glyton from Pierre Fabre, which was acquired by Clinical Skin. And of course, this has been topped by the IPO of Galderma, which, even though actually the IPO was scheduled to actually fetch 20 billion Swiss francs, only brought 12.9 billion Swiss francs on the IPO trading day. However, I think it was a good strategy by Fleming Onscove, because if we look at the performance of the IPO since then and the performance of the capital market since the end of March, we can see that the IPO has been actually a tremendous success. I mean, the share price has gone up from 53 Swiss francs on the first trading day to 68 Swiss francs yesterday. It's gone up to a market cap of 16.8 billion Swiss franc, which is around about the 20 billion US dollars. and it has enabled the company to deleverage themselves by paying back actually $2 billion of debt. So a lot of, I would say, reduction of the uncertainties if we look at the factors for the resurgence of M&A activities. First of all, inflation is now subdued, both in the US as well as in Europe. Second of all, we have a resumption actually of the trade with regards to certain countries, especially between US and Europe. We have an acceleration of the GDP growth of 2.3% this year. We had 1.3% last year. And we have actually a lot of money due to the fact that there is a reopening, I would say, of the quantitative easing by the different central banks worldwide. And this is synchronized. I mean, it seems that both the Fed, as well as like a, if you will, a beauty contest between the Fed and European Central Bank, the PBOC, of course, the Bank of England, Swiss National Bank, Bank of Japan, and everybody wants to have a very competitive currency and lower interest rates, of course, and inject massive liquidities into the banking system, which get reinvested afterwards into private equity, which cascades down to large transactions. And I'm sure private equity is now basically actually preparing to make other transactions. I mean, all of these companies, I would say medium-sized companies will either go public or they would be sold to private equity once they've reached a certain inflection point. Capital market performance, I mean, if I look at today's, is certainly not anymore what it was at the end of March. End of April was not so good due to the escalation of uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainties. However, generally speaking, Nikkei, for instance, I mean, plus 20% versus, the beginning of the year. This is a huge movement for the Japanese market, NASDAQ as well, S&P 8%, Hong Kong Stock Exchange, due to the power of the Magnificent Seven. I mean, as you know, the Magnificent Seven represent nowadays actually the total combined market cap of the Canadian, the UK, and all Chinese stock exchanges, Just the Microsoft market capitalization represents actually the market capitalization of the Toronto Stock Exchange. So, of course, this has led to a huge increase of market caps and capital market indices. Some of the biggest transactions which have taken place since the beginning of the year, we can see here again, the US is continuing its supercharged momentum from 2023, but we are in an election year, so it could be biased by this phenomenon, both in the clinic space, in the energy-based devices space with the Cynosure acquisition, and in the Wave acquisition of Viper. And in dermocosmetics, these were the transactions I was quoting before, Bridgepoint's acquisition of Rock, Compass Diversified, Honeypot, and very interestingly, some of the Europeans, I mean, like L'Oreal with Aesop last year, but Puig is a very diversified Spanish beauty, fragrance, and dermocosmetics group, which also holds a 50% joint venture in the dermal filler player Isdin. They acquired Barbara Sturm. I think that you probably know as well that they had acquired Charlotte Tilbury before. I mean, they're an extremely acquisitive platform. And here it goes on and on with L'Occitane. By the way, there are some rumors that L'Occitane wants to be taken private and to delist from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange together with Blackstone. So this would add to this entire, frenzy in valuations. Even though the SPAC wave has actually faded away, we have new delisting and private equity behemoths, which are now basically preparing for a very large, I would say, a very large splurge on the medical aesthetics targets. IPOs. We spoke about the Galderma IPO. This is the most important and the bellwether, I would say, actually, for the entire industry. Great performance and great after-trading performance also by the shares, driven by rationalization of the portfolio. Let's not forget that Fleming Nonsco had sold Proactive, before to Taro, and had sold as well Bubchen. Actually, the baby creams for diapers rash was sold to a German company called Damal. So that's the reason why the company now is well prepared for growth and is engaging. They have different types of immunological, I would say, interleukin products for prurigo nodularis, for instance, atopic dermatitis, and the pipeline, which are of interest for wound healing. And I'm sure we'll engage also in regenerative medicine transactions. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for your attention, and talk to you soon.